Oh, we will laugh and we cheer and we spill a bit of beer. Raise a glass to the past and the mates who ain't here. From Highbury to Upton Park, it's now Ashburn and Stratford for a lark. It's the Old Dad's Our Job podcast, the heart of the game. And we cheer and we spill a bit of beer. Raise a glass to the past and the mates who ain't here. From Highbury to Upton Park, it's now Ashburn and Stratford for a lark. It's the Old Dad's Our Job podcast, the heart of the game.
Hello and welcome to Dad's Our Job podcast, the original footballing podcast for dads by dads. Rob, Callum, how are we getting on tonight? We all good?
Yeah, all good. How's everyone?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. I'm really excited about tonight's interview. I must admit.
I am also really excited about tonight. I also thoroughly enjoyed our new intro.
Very Chas and Dave-esque.
Yeah. Well played, Ad. Yeah, it was pretty good. But I think the new theme song has been topped by our guest this evening. So I'm really excited to get him on and hear what he has to say, because he has a
let's not wait any further. Let's not take up any more of his time that he's already got. And let's welcome to the stage the one, the only, Keith Hackett.
Hi,
Keith,
good evening.
How are we doing? All right?
I'm very well, thanks.
Good. Now, thank you again for joining us this evening, spending your spare time with us three dads who just love a beer, and talking about all things football in your career. I think it's I really much appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure.
Are you ready to get grilled?
Absolutely. You ask the questions, whatever you want, I'll give you the answers. You might not like them, but that's me. I mean, I've always said it as it is.
I mean, to be fair, Keith, I've looked at a few of your videos online and some of your sort of reaction things that have been uploaded, and they are pretty special, and you don't hold back. So I am looking forward to hearing what you've got to say, because you try to go topical and sort of pressing. So it'll be interesting to see what you come up with.
Well, I think the important bit is that often they think that I'm the grumpy old guy that has a chip on my shoulder. I don't. I was an active referee from 1960 through till 1995, and I refereed on the professional leagues for 23 years. I had a spell on the North American Soccer League in the States and Canada. I lost a couple of jobs because of football, and perhaps go into a bit of detail on that later. But I also went to the Premier League and said, the game's getting quicker. We're getting further away from play. That's causing problems with regard to accuracy of decision making. We need to go professional. And, Philip Don took the role on initially. I was the development manager. And then when I took over, I brought in the communication kits, which are now used worldwide. And then I was at Old Trafford and I watched the ball, Roy Carroll drop it over the line. It wasn't an inch over, it was a good couple of feet over. And the referee was miles away. He was prepared for a goal kick. So he was rightly positioned. Clattenburg was the ref. And the assistant had gone up and in line with the offside line. And I just went to a summer conference and said, we need goal line technology. And in fairness, they said, well, go out and get it. And then was a year of fairly hard work with Orkai, Dr. Paul Hawkins, working hard at developing it and what we wanted. And, we got there inside a year. And it then took a further few years before it was introduced because Blatter, the head of FIFA, wouldn't allow us to introduce it. And thankfully, it was the work and the relationship that David Dean had within the game as a whole, and certainly with FIFA, that he managed to secure after the Frank Lampard scenario, where the ball crossed the line, we didn't get a goal, playing for England. Suddenly, Blatter said, right, we've got to have it. Now, we can get into the discussion later on VAR, but the reality is that with goal line technology, to get the accurate decision very quickly, in a matter of seconds, we developed and had to have 7 cameras around each goal, operating at 500 frames per second. Broadcast speeds are around 25 frames per second. So you can understand why we went in that direction. And, yep, there's been a couple of hiccups, only 2 in literally thousands of games. One was Aston Villa, Sheffield United.
Yeah.
They forgot to switch it on. As simple as that. Nothing to do with the equipment. But I give you that foundation of information because I am for technology. And maybe I'm jumping into questions, but the reality is VAR is not working. And I don't want to take the full program up on VAR, but maybe I'll talk about that later. And maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself.
We love it.
Us Arsenal boys can't wait to talk about VAR, to be honest.
I can understand it. I tell you, when I look at the figures that's produced by outside sources, not the PGMOL, you then see how Arsenal have suffered. And my PA, when I was boss of the PGMOL, was a massive, and still is to this day, a massive Arsenal fan. And her dad was involved with Arsenal. So I think in the kit room or something. And I still get blast from her. I still get the odd note saying, what is going on? And I'm responding saying, I've nothing to do with it, but it's a disaster. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll save that for later because that's a massive can of worms that we're looking forward to getting into with you. But I think Adam's going to start first. So.
That's fair. I think. My first question was, please introduce yourself to those that are not familiar with your game, and tell us who you are, what you've done, how much level of experience in the Premier League you've had, and then we can go into your family side. We'll talk about that first.
Well, I think, first of all, I was playing in grassroots football in Sheffield when the county FA decided that a player from the club would have to go and learn the laws of the game. I think they thought that was a great initiative to help the game generally. And I took the exam. I passed it 6 evenings over 6 weeks. So it was 3 hours a night, so 18 hours. Took the exam, no intentional referee. And then on a weekend I was off, no game. I got a call from the county FA secretary. It went like this. Hillsborough Boys Club versus Sheffield United Juniors, intake school, kick-off 3 p.m. I couldn't even answer because the phone went down. And that's how the county FA secretary worked. And so I had to borrow a kit. I went out that Friday afternoon and bought a whistle and an Ingersoll watch. You can see them in antique shops, rarely, but they've got 3/4 of an hour on, 45 minutes show. And refereed the first match, that particular game. Then I progressed and I was 12 years at grassroots level, doing about 100 games a year and a season. And Sunday mornings then was illegal. And so it was coats down. And on some occasions, just a field with no markings. Mm. And the players would say, well, we want a game. Whatever you do, whatever you say, we're going to go with it. And, you'd look at a ball that went over a coat and I used, they said, that's a goal. And I said, no, it isn't. And they go, Well, I said, look, I'm not refereeing by committee. You've asked me to referee, and I'm not getting paid for it. I'm happy to just tell you that's not a goal. Why? I want it down the middle. So I then moved on to the Yorkshire League, and then the Northern Premier League was formed, and that was the first time that I got involved with semi-professional football. And at the same time, you got the odd, the lower rounds of the FA Cup. I can remember refereeing Northwich Victoria versus Macclesfield. Northwich Victoria versus Wigan Athletic. Both Northern Premier League teams, by the way, at that stage, in the FA Cup. And I went out, and on my way, I went through Macclesfield, and I got a brand new company car. And a guy sideswiped me, big style. And the policeman was there. He'd given me the signal to go through this crossroads. So he was embarrassed, but he put in a report that was very honest. I thought that was great. And I go to Northwich Victoria, and had a pretty disastrous game because I felt ill. And I came off, got in the car. My mate was with me, and he said, Keith, I don't know what went off. I know you had a car crash, but bloody hell, that's the worst I've ever seen you referee. And so the following week, I didn't have a game, and I thought, you as referees, people think that you walk away and there's no sort of regret, but I was really upset by it. Anyhow, I had no game the following Saturday, so I thought I'm going to get over it. And then the FA rang me and said, Mr. Hackett, we've got a game for you in the FA Cup. And I go, oh, great. Thanks very much. You are free, aren't you? Yes, I am. You're going to referee Northwich Victoria versus Wigan Athletic. And I've gone, pardon? And I rung my mate and said, you're not going to believe this. I'm refereeing Northwich Victoria versus Wigan Athletic on Saturday. And he goes, you're on your own, mate. I'm not going. You'll never get in the ground. They'll not let you in the ground, not let you out. And so I can remember arriving, and this guy came in, and I'd got my head down, and he said, would you like a cup of tea, ref? And I go, yeah, please. And suddenly I looked up, and the face, and he went, it's not you again, is it? And I go, what are you on about? You haven't got a twin brother? And I go, no, I haven't. And he said, oh, I'm amazed you took the money last week because you didn't perform well, son. That's a bit of northern sort of coming out. I remember I said to my two linesmen, look, guys, I'm going to have a bit of hell afternoon because I was here last week and it was a bit of a disaster. And he went, what? I said, it's a bit of a disaster. So just take a bit. And as we walked out the middle, I've got the ball under my arm, walking out. And the announcer said, you might recognise this referee. We had him last week. He was bloody awful. Oh, my God, why they've sent him here again, I don't know. I'm very sorry because he'll spoil it all for everybody. So, having had a few years on the Northern Premier League, I then got on the Football League line, had 3 seasons on that. In 72, 75, I think I got in the middle, and then enjoyed 23 years. In 81, obviously, in 79, I had the FA Cup semi-final. I'm a Sheffield Wednesday fan. When I was a kid, my dad a steel worker. We lived in a terraced house. We would walk 3 miles to the football ground on a Saturday. Pigeons first, garden next, and then football. And I'd go to Hillsborough on the Cop and get ploughed down the middle over the tops of heads to the front as a youngster. And in 79, I got a call to say I was going to referee the semi-final of the FA Cup, Arsenal versus Liverpool. And I couldn't believe it because I'd never been on the pitch. I'd always paid the money. And my father had passed away, but I drove my car, company car. All the terraced houses had been raised to the ground, but I got my kit out. I had a blazer on, and walked the 3 miles to the ground, didn't stop at the pub on the way. And there were 1 or 2 people who recognised me on the way and saying, look, what are you doing? I'm going to the football match. Well, I thought you were refereeing it. I am. refereed the match. It was a 0-0 draw. It wasn't a great event. And if you remember, you might recall it went to several replays. I had the next replay at Villa Park. But, when the FA guy came in, he sort of said, fee and expenses, Mr. Hackett. And I went, note, which is a South Yorkshire nothing. Yeah. And I think he was a bit gobsmacked and said, look, mate, I'm just happy to have refereed at Hillsborough in an FA Cup semi-final. A year later, or 2 years later, in 81, I refereed the 100th FA Cup final, where everybody remembers Ricky Villa. And at that year, I went into the North American Soccer League. I had 6 weeks as a guest referee. And, you had to put up with various things. I can remember my first game was at Tampa Bay Rowdies and against Fort Lauderdale, which was a local derby, they tell me. Mm-hmm. And I had to be in my referee's kit at the hotel, picked up in a police car, driven to the stadium, driven out onto the middle of the pitch, and then the loudspeaker, today's referee, all the way from England, Mr. Keith Hackett. I went, this didn't happen at Rochdale when I refereed there. And then during the course of the match, this is all part of entertainment, but during the course of the match, when the home team, New York Cosmos, got the ball, they played diddle-in, 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 dun-dun, diddle-in. When the away team got the ball, it was da, 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 da. And so we had this for about 20 minutes until the ball gets kicked out towards my linesman, who's a Mexican, and he flags offside. I blow offside, Cosmos offside, and the next thing is they're playing Three Blind Mice. I always thought that was America. It was. I learned a lot. I learned a great deal. Yeah.
What sort of players were out in the NASL at that time? Because obviously Bobby Moore was out there, George Best, Rodney Marsh, Pele.
Yeah, you came
adventured over there.
They were all there earning across the. There were some that went back. There was the guy, the ginger-haired sub. I'm trying to remember his name. Fairclough of Liverpool. He was out there and came. Peter Beardsley was out there and he came back and played. And you'd walk out. I mean, if you had Vancouver Whitecaps, they had Peter Lorimer and several other players. So they knew you, and probably you'd never been in their company, but it was great because you got the relationship going, chatter that you could have with players. And they would help you in that process. But I learned a lot in that 6 weeks. I'd be Saturday evening, Vancouver, Sunday, New York, and probably Wednesday in Florida. And so I was backwards and forwards, living out of a suitcase. But it was a great 6 weeks. I learned it was great. And then I was on FIFA, so then traveling the world really. Out into Mexico City. I refereed in Azteca Stadium in front of 120,000. High altitude, Mexico City, 7,000. So we had that to contend with. Refereed in Guadalajara. And across Europe, most of the big grounds in Europe, Bernabeu, Barcelona, the Italian sides. I was fairly regular with Italian sides, with German sides, and I did the line in the Euro 84s, and then refereed in the 88. But we only had one game, so we knew we were only going to get one game. We'd flown out 3 days, no preparation that they have now. You would referee the football match and then come home. But great experience, I mean, when you're at the Premier League level, you're managing an event, not just a football match. You know, you're at the ground a couple of hours before kickoff. You know, an hour and 15 minutes, you're meeting the stadium manager and the security people. You're talking about what the arrangements are if the game has to be abandoned. You know, or if there's any problems, throwing of objects and all that. So you're discussing that. And then 1 hour before kickoff, one of the things that I introduced when I was boss of the PGMOL was we had assessors at every game, former referees. But you know, fans, when I spoke to fans, they'd say, it's policemen policing policemen, Keith. And you're all in the same club, mate. And you never admit to errors. And so I went to the Premier League and said, look, why don't we have a group of delegates made up of former managers and former players? And they go to the game, they watch the game, and like the assessor, they have their own separate marking system. And so we had that. We had Kenny Hibbert and John Duncan and a few others that were, you know, really positive about officiating. But then I also introduced Prozone, which is a system that was being used by Sam Allardyce at Bolton, David Moyes at Everton, Ferguson at Man United, Clive Woodward in rugby, he used it, and Arsene Wenger. And I can remember going to rattle it because I was at the game Bolton-Arsenal, and I'll say it quietly, Arsenal had a bit of I think Bolton had a bit of a curse on Arsenal. Because
they did.
But that particular day that I was there, JJ Okocha of Bolton had a fantastic game. And then on the Monday, with David Dean, I said, look, I'd seen all the other managers, but Wenger was reluctant because he said, look, I'm a football manager. I don't want to get involved in referees. But I met him at Radlett. We had a great meeting. He asked several questions, but what I had the Prozone analysis, which in effect is like FIFA, the game, but it has much more information. And so I got my laptop out and started showing him Bolton versus Arsenal. His technical staff hadn't put that before him. So I jumped the gun. I knew I'd jumped the gun because I asked Prozone to delay the stats and everything for Wenger. And I think at that point then there was a sort of relationship formed. He went, oh, just a minute. This guy thinks sports sciences. See, we all have our own view of a referee's performance. And often it's more perception than it is reality. And what I wanted to do was get to reality. And so when a manager came on and said, your referee's had a crap performance, what are you going to do about it? I would get in my car, go across and say, look, let's talk it through. Let's talk it through and show you what the outcome is. But at the same time, I would say the same. At the same time, I said to referees, I'm the 21st manager in the Premier League. The only difference is I don't get the wages that they get. But what the manager does is he invariably picks his best team. I'm going to do the same. And so at that time, I had 24 referees and I shrunk them down to 16. Because my view is that if you're not refereeing every week, then and sometimes twice a week, you're not on. It doesn't help the form. Doesn't refereeing isn't just about the physicality. It's about the mental awareness and it's the cognitive skills, seeing things, developing how the game is moving. All those aspects are part of the game. And I'm rabbiting on. I apologise.
No, it's fine. It's brilliant. I mean, you're answering a lot of questions that we had lined up.
Yeah.
But Cal, you wanted to ask a question, didn't you?
Well, to be fair, I just want to continue on with what you actually was about to say. But I think also we just want to touch on, obviously you said about how much you've travelled around and so on and so forth. And we were just wondering, obviously, what is your family set up? If you don't mind talking about it, obviously. And obviously, what impact has obviously by sounds that you was away a lot, you've travelled around the world a lot, and obviously what sort of impact has that had just, on your family, as well as obviously refereeing and decisions you make and the pressures that come with that and the impact that's had on your family as well?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I mean, I've got two sons, and one's got his own business and the other is in finance and doing a terrific job. They both played football at one stage. They don't anymore. One plays golf pretty regularly and is quite a good golfer. And I've got three grandsons and two granddaughters. Two heading for university. One has already been to university. The eldest grandson and the, I think, third oldest play football at a reasonable standard. My eldest grandson coaches the Penistone Church under 21 team, as well as playing for the reserves. I'm the president of the club, just by name, really, but I'm president of the Northern Counties East League, so I'm still involved. They're still involved, but they also like golf. I mean, when I was, working away from home, you had that contact. We didn't have mobile phones. We had a company phone, but we didn't have mobile phones. And I went out and bought them golf clubs because I didn't want them to be indoctrinated with football generally. I wanted them to play another sport. And with one of them, that stuck. I think that there are times when, certainly when I was in America, I was away. When you did international matches, you were 3 days. There wasn't the sort of week away. You flew in, set off usually at 6 o'clock in the morning, drive across to Manchester Airport, catch the plane, hopefully heading direct to Europe rather than through Heathrow, but often it was through Heathrow. And then, into Europe. So, going to Mexico a few weeks, officiating there. And sometimes what you have to understand is that some of those games, we had the block, we had the wall, and suddenly you'd be, I can remember refereeing East Germany against Switzerland in an international game and walking across Checkpoint Charlie. You flew into West Berlin, you caught a cab, and you're on your own, and you're passing the East German soldiers as well as the Americans, and you get to the other side. And I can remember that first visit I did was, Mr. Hackett, have you brought a camera? No. Oh, that's a pity, because I wanted to say this. Some years ago, the president of the United States was the side from where you've come, stood there making a very powerful speech. He wasn't allowed in to East Germany. Football allows you to come in. And so I was going a lot to Romania, other Eastern Bloc countries, including Russia, and seeing what was going on. And one of my claims to fame, I suppose, that was I did the last game between an East German, Karl-Marx-Stadt, Erfurt, Chemnitz, as they were called, versus Werder Bremen. So an East-West German side on unification night. We drove from Chemnitz a few miles to the wall, and there were people standing on the wall, knocking it down. And that in a sense was incredible. And I can remember lorries coming in carrying cars and beer wagons coming in, tankers, and people filling their buckets and bowls and everything with beer. It was interesting times. I'll tell you one story that I thought might be interesting, and that is I got a call to referee Gdansk versus Juventus. And there were no Western journalists allowed, no Western people allowed in Poland because of the solidarity and the strikes. And I said, yes, I'd be happy to go. And I can recall a couple of weeks of toing and froing with eventually FIFA saying, if Mr. Hackett is not allowed into Poland, you will all sort of recognition as a football nation, your teams and everything will be banned. And I got the okay. I flew into Warsaw. They put me into a hotel and I had to inform them, sorry, the regulations of UEFA is that you've got to be in the city 24 hours before kickoff. And we then took a plane that was which must have come out of a museum. And I can remember feeling a bit queasy. I'm not the best at it, but I'm telling you, this plane was going up and down, and we were flying about 3,000 feet. And it wasn't sort of the usual sort of thing with an aircraft. This was, I think, a loss of power and power on the aircraft. Eventually, we got to Gdansk. We landed. There were Russian soldiers at the airport. You know, the news in England was saying that Russia was threatening to come in. They were already there, but they weren't. They were low key. And the morning of the match, you do a 10 o'clock inspection. And on my way, the driver and the Polish FA guy said, Mr. Hackett, we're going to deviate a little bit. Do not worry. And I drove into this church area, got out. I thought they were going to show me the church. In fact, we went inside and I met Lech Walesa, who was the leader of Solidarity. I asked if he was going to be at the game and he just smiled. We exchanged. He wanted to inform me that could I get a message back that food and clothing was getting into Poland and would we continue to send it. During the course of that match, the ball went over the fence into the crowd. It didn't come back. The crowd parted, and there was Lech Walesa standing there shouting and everybody shouting solidarity. At that point, I'm informed reliably by Juve that the television camera switched off, and we stood there. Juventus. It was a great occasion because, and it shows the power of football. But I think it was helped by the fact that Boniek, the Polish number one player by a mile, had joined Juve, and this was his first return trip to Poland. So he was the person that everybody wanted to see. But, you know, that team had some great players, Platini being one of them, you know.
Yeah, forget Platini was, you know, obviously years ago he was one of the top people making decisions, wasn't he, in FIFA, and very much against VAR.
Well, he was a mate of Blatter, and he was the head of UEFA. He had some crazy ideas. He had that crazy idea that was supported by Kalina, putting somebody behind a goal.
Yeah, goal linesman, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, absolute waste of money. But that's what they do. These guys who sit around the table, think things up, they're better off with playing Ludo than actually looking at the game and just say, leave it alone.
They did try it in Champions League games, though, didn't they? That the fourth and fifth official on the actual pitch.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they did have it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and I mean, he was supposed to be there as a goal judge, but if you're aware of the work on goal line technology, the reality is, because you're dealing with a round ball on a flat, plain white line, and you're making a judgment, and the ball's traveling at speed. Visually, it can look inside the goal, and it's not. And you know, we did a series of photographs in the development of goal line technology, which of course I was involved with. You know, we set up at Motspur Park, Fulham. I mean, Al Fayed was a great supporter. In fact, he used to ring me every 2 weeks saying, when is it coming in? You know, your company's had some money to develop it. He He was adamant that it was going to come in. But then we had to spend a lot of time with UEFA and the IFAB before they would allow technology in. And, it's worked well. I mean, they made a change, I think, in the laws this year where it can be transmitted in the earpiece, rather than just straight to the watch. But I hope that works and continues to work well.
Yeah, I hope so.
Keith, can I just, before we move on, can I just touch on the pressures? Obviously, you mentioned about the pressures of obviously getting around and the travel and sort of, the time that you spent, because ultimately you didn't really spend much time other than going to the game and getting home by the sounds of it. But what's your thoughts on the pressures of your generations of referees and the generation of referees now? And obviously, I suppose your impact on what you've tried to introduce to bridge that gap, I suppose, or support the journey.
I think, first of all, I'd like to think that we had a better working relationship with players and a better understanding. Players have different personalities. There were some that would chat forever. There's some that had reputations that were more in the fans' eyes than in the referees' eyes, because we wanted to be prepared. So we had our own work. We knew who the players were. But see, you get in first. And I think all too often what happens is the modern referees allow things to drift before they come in. And what's the first thing they do? Bang a yellow card in the nose of the player and then finish up with 11 or 14, whatever the number is. So it devalues the yellow card. I'll tell you a story. I was once at Old Trafford.
Is it the
Joe Jordan and Gordon McQueen had moved from Leeds United to Manchester United. And I'm in the middle of the game when Joe Jordan had this habit of catching the ball on his forearms and nobody ever penalised him. But he controlled the ball. And I'd seen that on Match of the Day. And I've gone, if I ever referee Man United and he's playing, that's a foul. So I'm prejudging it. I'm prepared. And I blow. We're probably about 5 or 10 minutes into the game, and I've blown a free kick. And now he's a Scot that is probably less articulate than you would expect, and every other word was an expletive, questioning everything. And I just looked there, took it, smiled, and then said, "Right, Joe, you're banned from Stringfellas nightclub." And the look on his face, he just looked and went, and I ran away. I'm back on the park. And I see him go across to Gordon McQueen, and then at a corner kick, McQueen comes up to me. It's funny because the assessor thought he was having a go at me, but McQueen came up to me and said, "Mr. Hackett." I go, "Yes." He said, "Mr. Hackett, is Johnny Hackett your brother?" And I go, "Yeah." And he shouts to Joe, "Joe, he's Johnny's brother." My brother was the director of Stringfellas nightclub in London. So those are the sort of, the sort of things that used to happen on the field of play. I think comparing now, look, there was Match of the Day, but the reality is it didn't have the forensic. It didn't have the 22 cameras that the Premier League has now. Minimum 22 cameras. It doesn't have the forensic examination of the decision making. But we still were. When we came to the big games, the real big games, they did have the covering. And then you have the problems. I'll touch on it because West Ham and fans have probably heard this story, but, I'm the guy that ruined the game. West Ham versus Nottingham Forest FA Cup semi-final. No question.
I was going to touch on that. Actually.
There's no question that sending Tony Gale off impacted on the game massively, right? Because the momentum was lost. The players were gobsmacked. The fans were unhappy. But I tell you the background story. And why do I communicate with fans? And why do I spend time on social media and with various platforms writing about referees and laws and all that goes with it? Because the Thursday before the FA Cup semi-final, we were called to a meeting, all referees on the professional game, to a meeting in Coventry. We sat there, we saw a couple of video clips, and then we were advised that, you know, we all believed that the denial of an obvious goal-scoring opportunity had been brought in because in the FA Cup, Willie Young had brought down a player on his way to goal with a cynical challenge. And there was no punishment. And so the lawmakers decided dogso. At that point, we all believed as referees that for a red card to be given, it had to be a cynical challenge. And on the Thursday, they told us, no. FIFA have informed us this is not the case. Any foul where it's heading for goal or in the general direction of goal that takes place, and there's no defenders, right, it's a red card. So here we have Crosby of Forest running through, foul by Tony Gale, who even to this day denies that it was a foul, but it was a foul, brings Crosby down, and I'm absolutely now going, shit. Absolutely no way. And I'd give myself a lot of thinking time before I raised the red card. And the media and everybody thought I'd gone mad. And what happened was, you know, I got in the car park after the match. It was really to drive home. And an FA guy came up to me and said, well, Mr. Hackett, I attended the meeting in Coventry. It's good that you applied the laws as we now have to apply them. And I went, I'll tell you what, mate, I don't know who you are or what your position is, but swore at him and said, why didn't you as an organisation inform everybody the criteria had changed and that the fans and the media were aware of a change in the law application? And then I vowed that from that day on, I would transmit to anybody that wanted law knowledge. I went around the country talking to RAs, referees. I did some broadcasts. We didn't have the social media that happened. I visited clubs, the fans, to discuss, not to clear my name, not to clear myself, but to say, look, you need to have a greater understanding of the laws of the game, and you need to have a greater understanding of technology and how we're using it. You know, and you know, when you look at the top sports people in any sport, you know, and I've been lucky to know Johnny Nelson and you know, other boxers, Nazim, Ahmed and all that. And the reason they were great boxers was their application, their training, but their guidance that they got from their coach, Brendan Ingle. And what I set up at the PGMOL when I entered that for was a group of top quality coaches. And I said my job was to create a cadre of world-class referees. And we had, at that stage, out of 16, 17, we probably had 10 that could referee anywhere over the world. And some were disliked. I mean, Graham Paul, Graham Barber, Rob Stiles, Mark Halsey, Mark Clattenburg, Howard Webb, you know, Paul Durkin, great referee. So then when I'd had a fair crack at running that PGMOL and put them in the right ship, I said I was going to retire, 65. And the Premier League said to me, we'd like you to be the Premier League referee ambassador. So then I started traveling to South Africa, to Asia, to South America, running workshops for referees. Great thing is, I've watched New Zealand, Australia, Cameroon, guys come into a space and talk refereeing and wanted to learn. And, they've gone on to referee at the World Cup. And, I think that a lot of effort we put in with Webb. Now, when I left the PGMOL, they appointed Mike Riley in my place. I had no involvement in that appointment. I had my own choice.
Who was that, out of curiosity?
Well, interestingly, it was Peter Walton.
Right, okay.
And the reason I said Walton was one is an intelligent guy. He's an excellent communicator, and it was proven because when he didn't get the job, I was asked to go to America to create an equivalent of the PGMOL in America called Pro Referee. And I went across there. They wanted me to live in New York and take on the MLS job. And I said no. But I put forward Peter Walton, and he did a terrific job. He's willing to listen and learn. Riley, I hesitate because...
as much as any other fan, I think.
Well, I mean, I don't know what planet you're on. The one thing I can tell you is this: that when they appointed Howard, when he was on his bike, I don't think there's anybody cheered as loud as I did. And then my expectation raised because I'm suddenly thinking they're going to appoint Howard Webb, who was operating the MLS in America. And I thought Webb would come in. And like anybody that goes into a business, what you do is you review all the employees, you review the strategy of the business, you look at the profitability, etc. And I can tell you when I left, we were turning over 5 million. And $1 million of that was paid for by the deals I did on sponsorship. We were the first referees ever to be sponsored. And I did that deal with a bit of luck on a plane ride back from Dubai. I'd been out to Australia. And, we got that through FIFA, the ability to sponsor referees. And when he took over, I knew it would be a disaster.
Mm.
And
was it your first sponsor, Specsavers?
No, it's interesting because we did have an approach from Specsavers. Yeah. And it's a franchise operation. So it's a really good business, don't get me wrong. And I went, I'm sorry, it's not for us.
Yeah.
I turned it down. And I said, well, you might try Scotland, and that's where they did. The Scots picked it up. No, our first sponsor was Emirates Airlines.
Oh, Emirates, right.
We had that for 3 years. They wanted a bigger advert on the referee's shirt, but FIFA wouldn't allow us to do that. So we then went to AirAsia.
Mm-hmm. And
AirAsia set up a group of hotels, Tune. There was substantial business. And we went Tune, and then I left. And they've struggled. Well, I think they have a deal, but I don't think it's anywhere near the deals that we used to have.
Yeah, is that the sponsorship that you see on the sleeves now? Because they've got the EA Sports. Yeah, because I do recall the Specsavers appearing on a Premier League.
Yeah, it wasn't on the Premier League. It was Scottish Premier League for sure.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay, I apologise.
No, you're right. I apologise. I mean, it's a good company. I've no doubt that if maybe
it's time, though, isn't it?
Well, maybe it's time the Premier League should go with Specsavers.
When I saw it, I thought, that's great marketing because you're always getting called you're blind ref, and it's like, well, just on Specsavers. It's just brilliant. This is brilliant.
But when you look at the logistics that I put forward to Emirates Airline, it's substantial business. I said that 380 games, including FA Cup and a lot of Football League games, are covered on television and, broadcast to 211 countries around the world, and who appears fairly regularly on the screen. You might see the goalkeeper at corner kicks, but you'll see the referee exposed quite a lot. And they did the analysis, and they were very quick to come back and say, this is the deal. And then I can remember going to the board and announcing it, thinking, oh, no, clever boy, I've actually delivered here big time. And all I got was, but that could have gone to a football club. And at that particular time, Emirates were actually sponsoring Chelsea.
Yeah.
But we were able to prove to FIFA that there wasn't a clash by them being able to see the contractual arrangements that we had with.
Yeah, of course.
But we were 5 million, and the last set of accounts published by the PGMOL, at Companies House, you can go on and have a look. The turnover is 39 million. We're 900,000 lost, and Howard Webb's saying he wants another 20 million to improve training and development. I just think it's overloaded with administrators, and the front end is where the money needs to be spent. And
Keith,
if you've got a centre forward that's earning a fair amount of money and he's not hitting the back of the net, does he get in your team every week? I suggest not.
So like, if he plays for West Ham, he does, because we've got no option.
I operated the same way. My view was those referees that are in form would get the games. Those that blew it, right, or couldn't hack it, could have chosen a better word, but they were kicked off. So I didn't take pleasure in that, because they are employed, and I had to prove that in employment law that I'd given the verbal warnings, I'd given the written warnings, that we'd actually applied a great deal of coaching and advice. It wasn't a snapshot decision. But it's somewhere along the line, I think there's a lot of passengers currently. And that's shown by the fact that if you go on to PremierLeague.com and then more, and then referees, and then referees index, you'll get a drop-down box that shows, like, Anthony Taylor this season's had 31 games. And the guy who messed up with the goalkeeper at the weekend, Tom Bramall, 11. Doesn't it tell you that there's a bit of lacking of trust by the PGMOL? They've only appointed him to 11 games.
Yeah.
So why put him on such an important game?
Yes,
Keith,
fair point. Very fair point. Go on, Callum.
Keith, can you just elaborate on how you sort of help develop taking the referees into becoming professional,
yes,
and the things that you put in place, but also you sort of, if you don't mind, leading into how you mentioned how you would use that extra £20 million that Webb's asking for, and how you would improve now if you was in charge now as well. So what you've done in the past and where you took it up to, and then what you would do now if you were still in charge now, and where would you take the referee in now, if you don't mind.
Take the first bit first, right? I'd offload a load of administrators, because they're actually producing nothing. They're just a cost. So I'd flatten the management structure. I don't believe in pyramid structures, triangle structures that, the message gets through about 4 levels before it actually gets to the cold face. So that's the first thing I would do. And I think that and I won't go back into the business, but what you need to do, as I did initially when I took over from Philip Dunn, was a root and branch review. Where am I at with referees in terms of their training, their development? So to answer the question, I put forward a paper, and that paper was worked on by the Premier League, and in particular Sir Dave Richards and Graham McCrell at the time, to introduce professional referees. Could we actually attract those referees to become professional referees on a 1-year rolling contract? And that was difficult. And we came up with the idea that what we would do is we would say, right, in those informative years, we would allow them to do 20%, 20 hours a week, right, in their own environment, their own job. And we did that because that meant that I didn't have to pay them a pension at that time. But those people who were in education or in the police force, could actually work a couple of days a week and still retain their pension rights. So that was how we started. 40 grand basic salary, and they could work 20 hours in their own job. But the frontline job was working as a professional referee. The only difference was with David Ellery, the PGMOL and the board accommodated it.
The headmaster.
So what you got to understand about the PGMOL, first of all, the funds, the money to produce the PGMOL comes from the FA, the Premier League, and the Football League. And they are represented on a board of directors with an independent chairman. And I was general manager and reported to the board on a monthly basis. On occasions, I'd receive a phone call when there might be a problem, and I'd have to deal with that problem, whatever it is. And I also introduced sports science in a big way. So I employed a professional sports scientist in Professor Matt Weston. And then I also eventually introduced Simon Breivik into the equation because I needed to actually work at injury prevention and core work. We looked at the performances through Prozone analysis. I introduced that. I'd argued very strongly a player wasn't offside, and then Prozone proved it was. And so I went to Prozone and sat there with them and said, we want your product. And he goes, no, this is for football clubs, not for referees. And I said, well, we'll pay 100 grand a year for that privilege of having Prozone covered on a minimum 380 games. And of course, they jumped at it. But then we found they had no expertise in terms of refereeing. So I had to spend literally a day a week with their software writers, asking and measuring the information that I wanted. Distance from ball, speed profiles. As I was looking at the video of the game on the program, where were the speed profiles of the referee? Where was the position of the assistant referee? And then we could interrogate every set piece. So we'd meet on a fortnightly basis for 3 days at Staverton initially, a hotel near Banbury. I eventually moved to Warwick University. But what we would do is they would train in the morning and we would have review sessions. And that would be, let's have a look at the good bits and the bad bits of the weekend before. And we would play those clips and we'd ask the referee, talk us through how you came to that decision. Not actually to whip them, but to actually say, how could we as a group of referees avoid that in the future? Mm. And of course, we tested them. Referees today have an annual fitness test, but I wanted to bring in a change in refereeing by way of physicality. And that was suddenly looking at body mass, weighing them and monitoring their body mass, and various other things. So we did all that. I brought in a sports psychologist, and that wasn't for them to lie on a couch and have a coin and go into a thing. This was more about the psychology of dealing with players. That psychology sat in the technical area, out of the way, but watched carefully the pressures that referees were under. So we gave them coping skills to deal with pressure. The first thing if you're under pressure is take a deep breath. But we also gave them, we talked about fitness and movement, and the dynamic changed of the game. It changed from endurance into dynamic sprinting because the game had got quicker. Players were passing accurately. You know, there were halfbacks that could pass the ball on sixpence, 40, 50 yards. And the referee's not got a jet engine up his backside. He's got to go with a physical. And one way to do that is to have good cognitive skills, see things before they happen. We looked at body language. I benchmarked against Pierluigi Collina, who was then the world's best referee. Mm-hmm. And we looked at the interaction. And that's when you started getting the palm of the hands from the referee facing downwards, going, calm down, calm down. And we stopped this pointing at the player saying, come here, like Mike Riley used to do. And then one player at Arsenal decided, I'm not coming, mate. And then he finished up being embarrassed because he didn't do the end result. And that was walk down the tunnel, mate. I've won. I think there are things that you can do. So I think that constant conversation was going on. We had, with the assistant referees, we were doing the same. We were able to set up a system where we could actually train them. We had a forward, we had a defender, we had moving players, and we had setups, and they were videoed, the video opposite them, and they had to give an offside decision, and we measured that. We developed with Professor Werner Helsen, Belgium, Leuven University professor, well known in refereeing circles, and an outstanding sports science guy. And he wrote a paper on the flash lag effect. That's the delay from witnessing and seeing it. And so goal line technology came in. I worked on that. That took away some of the pressures of a big decision. We started the sort of wait and see process. But it was only wait and see to get a considered decision on offsides. And we had some really absolutely outstanding assistant referees, Phil Sharp, Mike Malarkey, Darren Cann, Glenn Turner. These are guys probably not familiar with, but
yeah. Well, actually
a football match from the line, and we're involved.
Actually, Keith, can I ask? I kind of want to sort of just pivot you a little bit at that. You mentioned assistant referees, and I guess I wanted to kind of bring you to the way football is right now. And I wondered if you could give us some of your thoughts about VAR and video assisted refereeing, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think that we've diminished the responsibility of the assistant referee in the process of officiating, which is a huge. It's a huge.
Yeah.
And where we literally led the world in the, look, as fans, we'd argue, we'd sit in the stand and say, you got that one right, or you got it wrong. But when you actually analyse some of the decisions they made, they were mind-boggling. Darren Cann, who's I think retired in the last few weeks. Darren, Phil Sharp, Glenn Turner. These are guys, and you can go down the list because there were, Guy Beale and everyone. They looked at it in the role of assistant referees and participation as a team. And one of the things that I did was I said, right, in my day, I would go out on a Saturday and look at the list and go, it's Fred Smith. I haven't seen him. I haven't worked with him before. I haven't worked with him. And I decided when I was boss of the PGMOL that I wanted a team effort. You live by the team, you die by the team. And so as a result, I kept the same assistant referees with the same referee. Maybe they'd work with another referee when that referee was overseas, something like that. But that enhanced the process. So now we get the VAR. And I'm a strong advocate of technology. But I also have an inside track. Having worked very closely with Prozone, having worked very closely in the business of software writing, but also having worked on goal line technology with Dr. Paul Hawkins. and that system evolved from an MOD product, so this was, it was working really well in tennis, straight lines, but, we got visible movement. So we go VAR. And of course the Premier League decided they're not having VAR. So they went a year and they were a year behind. So the team that, it was the Americans that said, right, we're going to have VAR. And there's a guy called Ross Barkey who was the VAR manager. And I presented a number of lectures on VAR and its introduction into Europe, and he would accompany, and his knowledge and his work was outstanding, and delivery of performance outstanding. So when we come here, for some unknown reason, they decided that if a referee refereed on a Friday, it could be VAR on a Saturday or Sunday. So that, would you ask a football player at the elite level to play on a Saturday and play on a Sunday? Answer no. I'll tell you the answer before I raise the question.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what you've got is you've got an hierarchy problem. Because I know that there was a list when I left of 10 world-class referees. I knew them individually, their strong personalities. I had a good idea who they would work with and who they wouldn't work with. And I think that it's almost a scattergun approach. Fred Smith's the referee today, and Joe Bloggs is the VAR tomorrow. And the relationship is, if Michael Oliver and Anthony Taylor are regarded as world-class referees, they are in Europe, they are around the world. So if they're regarded that highly, and I think that's recognised by the PGMOL. Anthony Taylor's had 31 games this season, and I think Michael Oliver's something like 26 in a 38 programme. So Taylor's been out almost every week, seven days off. What you then do is you actually say, right, how can we get the team working? So my view would have been, I would have had the VAR, a non-active referee, and he's VAR, and he would work with the team. I would not have had Stockley Park, because I think that what you need is you need the feel of the game that you're going to referee. And if you go to Arsenal early, you will see an hour and a half before kick-off the referee and his colleagues walking around the pitch, getting used to the atmosphere. Nobody in, but getting used to the atmosphere still, the geography, even though they've refereed there before. And we know that an hour and a quarter before the kick-off, the security come in and there's a debate and discussion. Then 1 hour before kick-off, usually the manager or the number two and the captain of the team come into the referee's dressing room and exchange team sheets. So all that is part of a process that was introduced, that I helped to introduce. So we get back to VAR. I think that it's not working. It's impacting in the game negatively. And I'll concentrate a little bit on offside and toenails. I've told you that the camera's operating at broadcast speeds. So if you take a loaf of bread and you slice it 25 times, that's Sky Television. If you use Sony cameras, you slice it 100 times. And by the very nature, 500 times. Because then you're going to get an accurate picture. There's a spread either side of the action.
Are you suggesting that the cameras being used for the offside decisions are not of the highest quality that are expected to make those decisions?
Well, I am saying that. I'm saying that on the basis that without the semi-automated system.
That's amazing. You think, like you said, about £39 million being used in Premier League referees, and then they're going for the cheaper option on the camera. What they've done. Because VAR operates on broadcast speeds. So now what they've done is what
the IFAB and FIFA recognise is just a minute. We want even more accurate decision making. So what did they do? They developed the semi-automated system, right? The semi-automated offside system, and that's run pretty successfully in
Champions
Europe.
League.
Champions
World
League.
Cup as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. What do? We go to a company called Genius and say, could you developers a semi-automated offside system? And that actually has more cameras. It uses Apple cameras, and it uses 38 cameras, right? And it uses AI, just like pickup points on each player, and therefore feeds that into a computer system. So all that sounds great. The difference is that the Premier League play with a different ball. They play with a Nike ball. I think it's going to be Puma.
Puma, yeah.
Mikel Arteta's turning. Mikel Arteta can hear you.
Well, if you look in Europe, they play with Adidas. And what Adidas has done, Adidas have got a chip in the ball, right? And why? Because the law on offside says touch and played. So if you've got a ball that's got a sensor in it that recognizes a touch, when the foot or whatever passes the ball forward, at that touch, you'll take a photograph of the position of the players.
Okay.
So as he's kicked it,
Yeah.
Before he's kicked it, the touch, because that's what the law says, the touch, right, is sufficient for a position.
Yeah.
When you have a tracking mechanism, you line up the cameras with that tracking mechanism, it doesn't pick up a static ball.
The touch, it doesn't pick up the touch.
Because that's why you see them, Keith, doing that kind of to and fro in the frames, trying to work out where the touch is nice by impact.
Yeah, well, I mean, what you've got is you've got a built-in error. And what Wenger wants is to overcome, if you like, that error in the process. But we don't recognise it. And so as a result, you get... you've had two incidents this year with this semi-automated system that the Premier League have introduced, where on each one, there's been a 6-minute delay before an offside decision be given. I think a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember the game, but there was a 6-minute delay because the players in a crowded zone were not instantly recognised, and that's again down to the speed of the camera.
Is it, Keith? Is it a sponsorship thing? Is it because, like you say about the ball and them using Adidas in Europe and having the chip? Is it the fact that we just don't want to use Adidas as one of our balls?
No. What you're looking at here is a commercial decision by the Premier League, who have paid substantial amounts of money to play with that particular ball.
Yeah.
I mean, in fairness, in that arrangement, all the referees' kit that you see them wearing and bench kit that they use for training is actually paid for out of that deal. So, so we're talking substantial amounts of money. But I mean, so the Premier League started off with the Nike ball, and that's where it's been. But I understand next season it'll be Puma.
Yeah, it will be Puma. Yeah.
So I think that these are the things that influence. So when you look at the decision-making process, what you then have to do is you have to look at the law, look at the technology. Can you marry them up? And part of the responsibility I feel with the English game, and I don't want to get into the Raj and all that goes with it, but with the English game, the oldest football club in the world is still in existence. It's Sheffield FC. Mm-hmm. It was formed in 1857. you know, and the rules of the game were part of what Sheffield produced.
Sheffield rules, yeah.
So there's a long history. You know, when we look at goal line technology, it's the English game, you know, the Premier League that funded goal line technology development with Hawkeye to get that delivered. And then we had to work hard to get it introduced. But, you know, they sustained that pressure.
Mm.
So I don't have issues. You know, when we talk about 29 million, I think that in the context of the game, when you know that this player's earning substantial amounts, people will dismiss it. But that is a substantial amount of money. You know,
it's a hell of a lot of money.
You know, we've got to get that churn going. You know, and they are employed, and they paid a pension, and you've got to apply employment law. The reality, as I see it, is this: referees have to have leadership and direction, and it has to be clear. And this isn't arrogance. This is what you have to do. You know, if you're Arteta, you're saying to their players, with the help of all the experts, the offensive coach, the defensive coach, the sports science, all that goes with it, you're actually the guy that makes the call. You're the boss. You select the team, and it's on your head that the performance rests. So it's my contention that I think this has been one of the poorest seasons at the professional level that I have witnessed. What I've also witnessed is, I think, a suppression. Last weekend, when a referee caught out of position made a decision that impacted on Aston Villa, right? However you look at it, I don't think it cost them 100 million, but it impacted on the game, impacted on the result. And he did it from too big a distance if he's a professional referee, and his law interpretation was incorrect. The referee handled the goalkeeper handled the ball, but to actually commit a handling offence, you've either got to have your hand on the ball and the ball's in contact with the ground, or the goalkeeper's body. So he fumbled it. And that left the ball open for the attacking player to come in. The ball had broken loose. The attacking player, in fairness to him, gained the ball correctly. So what happened? The referee blew. Now, we're asking assistant referees to delay their flag and run the risk, as we saw with a player recently that had a serious injury. But the reason we're delaying the flag is we're doing it because we don't want an error of a flag raised by the assistant referee for offside, and then when it's checked, it wasn't offside, and a goal could have resulted.
Yeah.
So what we've got here is the referee blows for a foul. VAR is not allowed to come in. And I just think that that's too prescriptive. The referee's made an error. The referee should have delayed. And the important thing here is that all referees learn from that error, and that the referee himself learns from that error.
Yeah.
You know, that's the important bit. But I think the first thing is, you know, I've witnessed this season some statements coming out of the Premier League that later, by the very nature that the red card's been thrown out, that the statement was incorrect. I was saying it was incorrect from minute one. I mean, I'm not clever here. The reality is, you're in the stadium, you might see it once on your phone. I'm probably sat at home and I can see it 4 or 5 times, which is a bit unfair to the referee. But then I'm actually saying, with no chip on the shoulder, I'm actually saying, look, guys, admit the error and then move on. How can you avoid that error in the future? So Thomas Brownell would be going under a fairly strict regime of a running coach and to improve his speed profiles.
That's interesting.
Do you think referees or the powers that be don't want to admit they made mistakes because of the money that's involved? And I mean, as you just said, you don't think Aston Villa potentially lost £100 million or whatever it might have been, but is it the fact that if they go, oh, we've got this wrong, then clubs will go, well, like for instance, I mean, I know I'm biased, but Arsenal have had some poor decisions this year, or arguably poor decisions, where Arteta's going to go, well, we could be. To be fair, we were off it anyway, but we would have been closer, potentially to Liverpool or whatever it might have been, and then they've got a case to go. Well, actually, look at the impact it has had. Is that what? Do you think it is just they don't want to take liability of it, or?
Well, probably they got fed up with me because I've always believed in transparency, and that. But
that's what fans want.
I'm not saying that I'm not saying the PGMOL are dishonest. I think that what he suddenly thought is, just a minute, way back, he does get himself in some corners with managers. But see, I'd pick the phone up and speak to the managers. They didn't always agree, by the way. And sometimes there'd have to be a cooling off period, not from my side, but from the manager's side. But I put in channels of communication that were very solid, that they could talk to and have a sort of view, if you like. And I think that won to some degree, won respect. I think transparency is so important. Knowledge of the laws is so important because you have to educate at times. Why is this decision being made? The simple truth is they could have come out and said, sadly, the referee has made an error. His error in judgment is because he's too far from the play. We know what the problem is. We will work to rectify that in future games. Full stop. This is the law. Full stop. They chose to say nothing. But what they do is they come out on a program called Mic'd Up, don't they? And then that's all like...
That's been cancelled now. That's been cancelled now on Sky Sports, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's too scripted. It's too prescriptive. I think, look, the laws of the game protect the referee. He cannot be sued because the laws state the final decision is with the referee. Law 5, and I won't get into 2, timekeeping, the sole timekeeper of the game is the referee. David Dean and I have been saying for 10 to 15 years, we want an independent timekeeper.
Alex Ferguson.
We don't want it. No, we don't want it. We don't want it. We don't want it in the. We don't want it in the hands of the referee because they're not producing accurate timing.
Yeah. Do you not think that all the? I've got one more question to ask after this.
Yeah, I've got to go soon. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. I'm just thinking, do you not think that a lot of the rules and stuff that are coming into this stuff, we're taking from other sports and then kind of losing the identity of football? Like, there's talk about having sin bins introduced, like from rugby, a blue card coming in, and then you're looking at the stop clock coming in, which is very much similar to rugby. Do you not think that not having these sort of management processes within the game is kind of taking away the original rules of football, do you think?
Well, I think it's a good point. I think first of all, when we actually look at the use of communication kits, I introduced that because I watched a rugby game at Twickenham, and I don't know the sport, still don't know it, but I listened in to the referee and I thought that's really informative, educational, and I could use that from a coaching perspective. So that following Monday, I got permission to purchase them. So I don't have the technology side. I've said for a long time, right, that the TMO, I don't know I think it's TMO in rugby, right, where the referee goes to the big screen and everybody listens in and everybody sees that process. Mm-hmm. I cannot see why that's not introduced into football. I don't see why. Did
they not do that in the? Was that in the Carabao Cup? They done that.
what they've done is that the referee goes and has a look at the screen. He comes and says, rather than pointing to the penalty mark, he said, I've seen the screen, I'm giving a penalty kick, and everybody knows he's giving a penalty kick because he pointed to it. I mean, I think that's just like window dressing. So for me, at the big screen, I think the timekeeping element is so important in a game. And I would like that to be independent. I'm not necessarily down to a stop clock, but I've worked with that in the NASL in the 1982. They had independent timekeepers, and it worked well. I didn't encounter a problem with it. But I do think that there are laws like handball, like offside, that could be made a lot easier. And I think would help the process. Right, I'm going to bore you here now.
You've had this already in waiting. You've got it out your drawer.
I'm not a nerd here. I'm not a nerd. Right,
mate, we love nerds. Go for it.
Right, fine. Right, just a minute. Let me find it.
I think all this is just in brief while you're finding it. I think this conversation is just proving to the fact that the Premier League is lacking someone like you to come back in for the fans more than anything, because there's a lot of decisions there where we come away from games very disappointed because of the shirking of some decisions, the lack of responsibility and the lack of transparency in games. And I think, I say, this hour and a half that we've had with you so far is highlighting that
Adam,
is a significant error. Go on, Callum.
Adam, do you know what it is? It's that old school mentality. It is that, do you know what? This is what's happened. This is what we're going to do about it. We've made a mistake, or whatever it might be, or this is the laws, and this is what we're going to do going forward. And I think what we're missing now is there's so much smoke where sometimes you just need to be direct and just be like, this is what's happening.
I think if you talk to players, you talk to managers, ultimately at the end of the day, they're honest people, and I think they recognise they've got to entertain, and they do go through difficult paths. The old point of, there's certain things like I introduced 30 minutes after the game, the manager can knock on the referee's dressing room door and query a decision, or 2 or 3 if he's got them. So and that is about, the referee taking a bit of a pressure to some degree, but also thinking about what he's done and giving an answer. Here it is. This is this is the laws of the game, 1935. Somebody sent me this. Here's the law on handball.
Let's put this on. Oh, go on, and you read it out. Sorry, right. I thought I was going to show it. I'll read it. Show it. Go on.
It's
Sorry.
all right. Foul. Foul's a misconduct. It's a foul if a player handles a ball, i.e. carries, strikes, or propels it with a hand or arm. This does not apply to the goalkeeper. What's wrong with that? That's handball.
So,
I mean, everybody knows where the hand and arm is. Why do we need to be told that the underside of the armpit, right, to the fingertip is the area that needs to be penalised? I know what a hand and arm is. If you're going to say the shoulder, which is fact now, can be used and is not part of the hand and arm, okay, fine. But, and then it goes on to say body shape bigger. Well, when a player spins, or you spin, or you turn, funnily enough, your arms go away from your body. They don't go in the direction of moving towards it. And I think that I'm trying not to sound clever here, but the reality is common sense is where and should be the thread through. And the simplification of the laws of the game should continue, not expand. We don't need. I think that we're trying to be too prescriptive, and what we've now got is I've watched the careers of referees over many years, and some of the referees that have got to the top level, I've played a part in that. But what I've seen is some of their natural ability taken away from them. I watched one referee, I'm not mentioning it, it'd be unfair, but I watched one referee who used to be quite happy giving penalty kicks, and now he's got in front of him, and he's waiting for that VAR going, I think it's a penalty kick, come to the screen. And what we've got is we've got VAR making decisions, not referees.
VAR is there to correct decisions that may be wrong, isn't it? Rather than dictating decisions. Because that's, again, you're letting the game. What
I want to be, I want a guy. I want a guy sat in a room watching the match, going like, I think you need to be a bit closer to play, pal. I want a flat palm of the hand in the back of the referee. And I want
doing that, reclining, going, carry on, mate.
Well, I'm taking no credit for this, but Graham Poll and Graham Barber in their era introduced 10-minute referee. And what that meant was they liaised with their assistant referees, and they would start the game pretty tight. Not, i.e., that's a foul, give it. Not play advantage, that's a foul. So they'd be tightly controlling the game. And at 10 minutes, the linesman, his assistants and him, they would liaise. And they might give a signal that says to him, it's going okay, free it up a little bit. And he'd then free it up. Or it's getting a bit out of hand, you've given a free kick here, free kick there, sort it. Now, I notice in this questions before I go, the 21-man brawl at Manchester United versus Arsenal happened because I hadn't prepared well. If I knew that in the previous encounter, two players, one from each side, were unhappy with each other, I might have gripped that a bit better. But nonetheless, the game was okay. There wasn't a problem. And then all of a sudden it exploded. And I piled in because that was my style, drag him apart. And that's, I learned from that. It's not good practice, but that's beside the point. But then I back off and I've given myself some thinking time and thinking, well, which one do I send off here?
You sent neither of them off, did you?
If I send him, he's got to go. If he's got to go, he's got to go. And he's got to go. Am I absolutely 100% I've seen that? And he goes, that's 5. Then it's 6. And you suddenly go, just a minute. I look around, I think there's a 50-odd thousand in this stadium. They've all paid good money. And the last thing they want is me to walk the players off because I've sent too many on.
Yeah.
So I took the view, nobody gets a red card. And we came off and everything was hunky-dory until the FA got involved and I issued a report. And that's when, for the first time, clubs were deducted points. As simple as that. Right. And that was me trying to be fair because, when I went to Lancaster Gate, when I went to Lancaster Gate and we saw the video, they said, what would you do with that? I said, well, if I'd seen that, he'd have gone. What? He sent off. McClare would have gone, no question. He's had a kick at an opponent. I can't defend that as a referee. But I'm going to only act on what I see, not guess.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, that's actually
off you go.
Yeah. That's it. When you were talking about you going through that, it reminded me of the World Cup game between Portugal and Netherlands, where the referee was just sending everyone off, and I think they ended up finished like 8 versus 7 or something. And it's just like, well, nobody wants to see that. Everyone wants to see 11 v 11.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was fortunate because I'll tell one story before I go. I was a member of Romford RA, so every month we had a meeting and we'd go. And I sat one day against this guy, aside of this guy called Ken Aston. I'd seen him on television in 1966 when the Argentinian Ratting was sent off. There were no red and yellow cards then. So he was sent off, but he wouldn't go. And neither did he communicate in English. So there was a real delay. And so that was 66. And then about a year later, the guy's name's Ken Aston. He was a FIFA referee, but for the World Cup, he was a FIFA official, i.e. he worked for FIFA on the administration side. And a year later, he was a headmaster of the school and he stopped the car at a traffic light system. And that's when he got the answer, red and yellow cards. And so it was an English guy from Romford, Ken Aston, who made the decision about red and yellow cards.
Wow.
Blimey.
If I was in charge now of IFAB, the lawmakers, I would say I'm going to run an experiment in the Premier League. Oh, what's that? I'd like to do away with red and yellow cards.
What would you hope to achieve from that?
Well, I'll tell you what I want to achieve. I want a better working relationship. I want more thinking about red and yellow cards. You know, when I first started refereeing, 10 years after I started refereeing, maybe a bit longer, red and yellow cards were introduced. And I can remember an old referee saying to me, whispering in my ear, Keith, operate this way. If you get 4 yellow cards, the next one's red. And don't matter who it is, it's red. Do you know what that did? I made certain there was value in every yellow card that I issued. And what I did was I worked hard at it. I worked hard with players so that we could avoid red cards. So I think history says, somebody told me a few weeks ago, that in those 23 years, I sent less than 10 players off.
Wow.
Yeah, I see the stats of that, actually. That's why you're in the top 100, Keith, in terms of the statistics.
So that is what I tried to bring when I was boss of the PGMOL. Improved relationships on the field of play, involvement of the LMA and the PFA, involvement of managers who at times were really unhappy, face-to-face, because it's amazing, isn't it? You know, if we go emails or we go on the phone, we can say things because we don't have to back them up. But when we're face-to-face, we have to justify what we're saying because the guy who sat opposite the table might come back.
Yeah.
I'm going.
No, thank you, Keith. I mean, it's been. We was only expecting one half, but I think we got 2 halves out of you with no orange as a break. Thank you very much for spending your time talking to us 3 idiots. But you've educated us in terms of officiating, a history lesson in VAR, and it's going to make us definitely think differently in games now, which is great. And so I wish all your family all the best.
Thank you.
Keep in touch, and we can try and do another episode in next season.
Absolutely, no problem.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, incredible, mate.
Much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Keith.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Cheers, Pete.
Wow.
I feel like I
Wow.
need to sit down and listen to the podcast again.
Can I just say something, right? I know like everyone has to retire or slow down or whatever, but how on earth is he not a consultant? I mean, everything he said, I'm sitting there going, he's absolutely bang on. I mean, and also, can I just say, all the stuff he's been a part of is incredible.
Cal,
what a bloke.
We could have just let him have the keys to the office and logged off.
Yeah, we didn't need to be there. But basically, modern day referee is off his back. It's come off his back. Yeah, isn't it? Let's be honest.
No, one of the things that he said, Cal, I wanted to ask him about it, but I also was very aware that we were so far over time. Like it just would have opened up another can.
I didn't even care about the time.
He said that he was talking about. Do you remember when he was talking about leadership, and he was talking about Mikel Arteta? I was desperate to sort of say to him, where is the leadership in the PGMOL? Like, you know, and it was, I mean, the answer is itself, because I already knew what the answer was going to be, that there isn't a clear leadership model in the PGMOL that's respected enough. And so it just begs that kind of, it's just such a shame that people like him are not helping to shape the way that refereeing is carried out in this country. And he says, what's frustrating is he's saying all the same things that a fan says. So like he's saying that refereeing isn't being refereed by referees, and games aren't being refereed by referees anymore. They're being refereed by a bloke in an office, and all those things. And you know, like he said, he's pro the technology, right? Your guests were quiet. Excellent show, Keith. Your guests were quiet. That's brutal.
Very true, though. But yeah, true.
But it just
Leslie, you know the word bard is in your name, right?
But the thing is that shows the quality of the guest, though, isn't it? And his knowledge.
Yeah. We've worked very hard to collectively. We've worked very hard to get Keith on. It's you know, this is what we try and do. We're trying to get professionals into this platform, understand their family livelihoods and their decision making as to why they are so professional. And Keith is a perfect example of that. Like I say, he's travelled the world. He's gone to Romania. He's crossed the checkpoint Charlie, and he's refereed Pele and Rodney Marsh in America and stuff. And he's talking to us free because he wants to educate people, and I respect that. And, you know, that is, you know, he doesn't have to talk to free dads from Alcester, but he does.
But you know what, Adam? All of that stuff is absolutely true, right? But he says things, right? He's saying the things. He's not. Do you know what? He's not even trying to please us. He's not even trying to be he's not even trying to be a crowd pleaser, is he? He's just saying what football fans think, but he's saying it in a way where we're all like, this is the guy that should, you know, he's the guy that we're all talking about in the pub with. You know, he's saying the same things. Referees are not doing enough because they're being refereed by somebody else in another room, and but also, you know, what else he's saying, Rob? It's the type of voice that the PGMOL is missing, isn't it? And that's what it sounds like. And it sounds like he feels that way as well.
But you know what else is being missed is that the fact that it's his life. That has been his whole life since whatever age he was, 11 or 12, whatever he said. Yeah. But also he's talking about using the technology in the right way. He's almost saying, come away from VAR and use that technology in a sense of where referees should be picking up their positions in certain situations. And that's the impression that I was getting, him saying, like, use the technology in the sense of, you know, mapping where referees run and how much they're running and where they're picking up positions. And then when it is a corner, where they should be standing for a corner so they can make the best decision. Or, you know, if the ball breaks, where should they be picking up? Like, he's all for technology, yeah, but educating the referee so that he could be in a position to make the best decision and not actually have the camera work to make that decision. Like, I just thought he was top drawer, absolutely top drawer, and everything they said, and you know, even for him to come forward and say at the end, he says as an experiment, but you know, he did 10 years without a red and yellow card, where basically he would basically pull someone by the ear and go, like, listen, behave yourself now, right? You need to stop tackling like this or whatever, and still be able to manage the game without relying on the yellow and red card. Because let's be honest, if you know, from what he's saying, referees they rely on the yellow card to set a precedent in the game. I'll do a quick yellow card to say, right, that's the level I'm playing at. Where if he was to collar him and go, enough's enough, and again he keeps mentioning relationship, because let's be honest, all of us said, and even when, you know, I was playing, you didn't talk to the ref. You're not allowed to talk to the ref or whatever. Where he's actually saying, come here, I'll explain to you what I'm doing. I'm happy to have that conversation. I'm happy to have a Barney with you as well, by the sounds of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that you can see where some of you can see in games where players don't. There are certain referees players feel like they can talk to, and you can see it. But you can also see where referees almost kind of create a barrier between themselves and the players are already frustrated before they've had a chance. Like, it's easy because I'm an Arsenal fan and I watch Arsenal, but I've seen the way Declan Rice responds to decisions on the pitch, right, sometimes. And you can say that some of it is just him throwing his toys out the pram or whatever, but you can see some of the frustration where he... you can see his frustration where he's like, I don't feel like I can talk to you about that. Like, it's just, I can't even have a conversation with you about this because I just know it's not worth my time. And I can see it in Declan Rice, and obviously other football fans will see it in their own players when they're just like, what's the point even trying to talk to you? What do you say?
Yeah, no, I think you're bang on. It is probably because
same, Leon.
Yeah, and I think it's just. So I was just reading the comments as I was talking. It's almost like the referees that are being produced today are probably the more stubborn than what the players are, is because they're the ones that are making the decision. But they have to. They're the ones that are making the decision, but they're not. They have to apply a list of addendums to a particular rule. Like Keith brought out the 1935 rule book, and it says handball. If it hits the hand, it's handball. Whereas now it's like, well, if it hits this part, it's not handball. But if it hits this part, it's handball. But then if you've got a sleeve that does that or does that, then it's like, well, okay, we'll go to VAR because your sleeve's up here, then that means... But it's like, how can you determine that? There's so many grey areas. If it hits the arm, it's the fucking handball.
Do you know what it is as well? Do you know what it is, Adam, as well? Is like, you know when you hear people talk about the beautiful game, right? A lot, and how the beautiful game has changed and whatever, and handball used to be handball in my day, right? But for a lot of people, a lot of football fans, they've never lived in an environment where if it touched your hand, it was handball. So, like, in our generation, towards when, you know, the late 90s, early 2000s, when we were hitting our teen years, right, and we were becoming maybe more invested in the structure of football a little bit more, by then, the handball rules were already changing and we were already experiencing the game in a different way to the way, say our parents were experiencing the game. Like, I always talk about, I mean, I've mentioned it a couple of times. I love the Nick Hornby book, Fever Pitch, right? And I read that book and I can just imagine what our own dad's experience of football was, and the rules and the way that standing in football grounds, like all this type of stuff, which is just completely alien to my whole football experience, other than if I go down to watch Househead, the Humbugs, and I stand and watch a game there, you know? So I think that the whole, what the beautiful game looked like, the beautiful game looks different depending on the generation that you were born in. And so I think that's also a pill that people need to have to swallow at different times as well, isn't it?
Yeah. No, there is that. And also, the game has had to have an enforced change in some areas because of tragedy. I mean, you look at the Hillsborough disaster.
Yeah, no, I'm not that, sorry.
Yeah, I know he wasn't. You look at the Hillsborough disaster, like that's why we've got all-seater stadiums now, and that's why the safe standing is now being reintroduced into the game, because it allows fans to be partisan at stadiums, whereas previously before that was a security issue, which is why so many people's lives were lost. But
this is what before we wrap up. I was going to say our dad just messaged us as well, and he said that Keith should come out of retirement. I don't think he would go to the PGMOL now. I don't think he'd go back.
No, but in fairness, people like Keith should be the ones in the office.
But he should be a consultant. How is he not a consultant? I'm really sorry. Like, as an external or a detached, professional.
He's just retired, isn't he? That's the thing. He's like I say, he's gave his entire life for this game. Now he's retired. He's like, well, and maybe that retirement has been enforced on him because he made suggestions, he made decisions,
because he doesn't go with the protocol, because he's fine.
Exactly.
He's got a voice. Basically, he's not a yes man by sounds. He's not a yes man from what he said at all, is he?
Yeah.
But that's what the football's missing, isn't it? It's them character again. It's about basically having a bottle to say what you say and standing by it, and having a character. He's obviously a character, isn't he? I can't imagine him being any sort of pushover. But then he's not. he hasn't got to the level that he's got to in the sense of refereeing first of all, but also in the sense of what he's introduced. And let's be honest, he has been a major push from taking referees from, but being unprofessional to being professional, and all the things in between that, by not being a yes man. But then why would you then stand someone that down or not have someone like that as a consultant when he's taken the game to where it's got to now? I just don't get it. What are you laughing at, Rob?
I'm laughing at one of the comments that have come up. I'm not laughing at you. One of the comments saying that they want yes men. They don't want someone with common sense.
Yeah, it's true. I agree. Who said that? Leon. He's bang on, mate. You're spot on. I agree.
Don't give Leon too much credit. He just said that Declan's a big crybaby as well. So don't give Leon too much time on the show.
Listen, as long as he keeps playing the way he does, he could cry as much as he likes. I don't care.
Anyway, that's enough Keith Hackett talk. We've had an hour and 50 minutes of Keith Hackett when he was only expecting 45. So I think that's set its tone now, and hopefully some of the stuff that gets implemented and his suggestions do come in. And someone that does watch this is taking note. Out of the 6 viewers, that'd be great.
Sky Sports should be watching this and going, mate, let's put someone out online, mate.
That's their job. Get Gary Lineker in because he's available, and then get him to review our podcast.
Do you know what? He's a dad. Maybe we could invite him to be a co-host.
Yeah, maybe.
Come and join us.
The thing is, I'd have to get a wider screen for his ears.
No, don't say that. He might come on, and someone will play this back to him. Want to bring Gary Lineker and Big Meeks on? No,
we'll probably end up with Wayne Lineker, mate.
Definitely not Wayne Lineker, please.
Anyway, Premier League review. Let's talk about this quickly for about 10 minutes before we go off.
10 minutes?
Hold on, I'm going to get a red wine. You start.
Don't you want to? 10 minutes? Do you want to save this for another day?
No, let's do it. All right, let's do it now. Because this is all going out as one episode. So. Let's do that. Well, okay, I'll start with West Ham. I mean, obviously it started high. In terms of Lopetegui being appointed, we won the transfer window, but we got found out by not winning our first 3 games, and it went on a slippery slope. But there was an interesting set of stats here. Senior sources, interesting set of stats that Julian Lopetegui achieved 22 points this season, where Graham Potter got the remaining points tally on that. So it actually worked out that Lopetegui had a better reign as West Ham boss than what Potter has, and we decided to build with Potter. But if I had to give a grading in terms of where we've fared, how much we've spent with the transition that we've had, West Ham is I say a 3 out of 10. I've just not been particularly happy. I don't think it's been a great season for us.
You're normally only a 5 out of 10 anyway, so you ain't done bad.
Well, 3, yeah. The only positive from that is that we didn't get relegated. That's Jared Bowen. That is probably about it. But other than that, this season was supposed to be the transitional season from David Moyes. And we've kind of stood still, really. We're actually in a worse position now than what we was when Moyes left in terms of squad rebuilding. So it will be an interesting summer, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
For you, I know how excited you was at the beginning of this season, and you are in a worse position than you was with Moyes. There's no two ways about it.
We are now, but we've got it will keep hold of him. Okay. The one thing that wouldn't surprise me that would happen is Aaron Wan-Bissaka going to Crystal Palace.
You can see
for a quick profit. I wouldn't completely write it off, if I'm honest, because 1, his agent is Will Salthouse. 2, Crystal Palace is his club, and 3, Palace are in Europe. So they've got more of a law than what West Ham have. West Ham paid 15 million for Aaron Wan-Bissaka, which is an absolute steal.
Yeah, agree.
If they can sell him for 25, that's what
I think it's worth more than that.
Yeah, we're selling for 25 after a season. The ownership will look at it and think, you know what, we'll go and get Tarek Lamptey and Carl Walker-Peters in on a Bosman, and we've replaced him and made 25 million. But that's what I'm worried about. So
yeah. I actually am quite happy with Arsenal's season, I have to say. And I ranked the season quite high, to be honest. I'm trying to take into account the cup competitions, which were disappointing. But then I'm also taking into account things that I think I'm not.
Well,
It's difficult because I'm probably 7+ out of 10, somewhere there. And the reason why, initially when you started this, I was thinking I'm going to be like a solid 8.5, but I'm around about the 7. And the reason why I'm a 7 is because we had those injuries, and Arsenal had a lot of hamstring injuries this year, which worries me. And I think that, and I don't want to echo Thierry Henry on this because I don't completely agree with some of the things that Thierry Henry has said this week. But I do think the injuries killed us this year. I don't hate that Arsenal didn't panic buying January, but if the rumours are true and we are looking at buying Gyökeres and then also Ollie Watkins, that would frustrate me a little bit because we should have just bought him in January then, you know. And I'm not against Arsenal buying Ollie Watkins, by the way. I'm absolutely for it. I haven't got a problem with Arsenal buying Watkins at all if Gyökeres is the long-term plan and they want to have a little bit of experience. And apparently the plan is to pull Havertz back a little bit and play him in the role he was when he was at was it Leverkusen? Is that right? Was he at Leverkusen?
he was at Leverkusen,
Yeah.
Before
playing,
before Chelsea.
Yeah. So playing it more in the Leverkusen, where he was playing when he was playing for Leverkusen, I don't have a problem with any of that. But if you were going to go and get Watkins anyway, then you might as well have just bought him in January. I think going deeper in the Champions League was an absolute. You couldn't have really imagined that we would beat Real Madrid in the quarterfinals. And although we lost to PSG, in terms of if we'd taken our chances, we would have beat PSG. If you're looking at the statistics, I just think that's a massive win, and I think having that kind of another decent run in the Champions League would just keep that kind of momentum and the experience of being able to compete in that competition, especially in the new format, which was, you could argue, probably tougher because you're playing bigger games earlier. And then we finished second again. And you've got to think that the last time Arsenal finished second 3 times in a row, they won the league the following season after that. So, yeah, I think 7.5 out of 10. I think would be fair. What do you think?
Yeah,
Callum?
I mean, you touched on Henry and some of these comments, and I think, as you said, rightly so as well, that the injuries that we've had have made a massive effect. Has had a massive effect, as well as some of the decisions that we've had. And I think if you look at the overall picture, for us to finish second three times in a row, obviously no one wants to finish second, but again, it shows the level that we're at. You know what I mean? Like, I actually honestly believe that we were going to drop right off this season in the league, and I said I think we would end up finish 3rd and 4th in my predictions, and that Man City and Liverpool would go on. And obviously Liverpool did do that. But again, I think Arsenal finished second is credit to Arteta, and what he's doing. And I know lots of people saying about winning trophies and Man United doing this and Man United getting 5 finals, but I mean, it's fantastic that the English clubs have won the European trophies or whatever, but again, no disrespect, Adam, and again, I wouldn't complain if we did win them, but how many times do you get asked, did you win a Europa League trophy or a Conference Europa League trophy? I had this debate at school with some of my kids. I'm like, the only trophy you ever get asked is if you win the Champions League or Premier League. I'm not being horrible. But again, I'm just trying to say, like, no one asked if you won Europa League or Euro Conference, or maybe the FA Cup you might get asked, but no one asked about them cups. It's about the Champions League and the Premier League, and you know, Man United could say Tottenham could say we've done this, Chelsea could say we've done that, but long term, they're going to be measured on Champions Leagues and Premier Leagues, and none of us have won that apart from
Chelsea.
Liverpool.
Yeah. Chelsea as well. Can I just touch on that as well, Cal? With the that whole debate about winning the Europa League and the Conference League. That's like you can't call yourself the champion. I don't like this whole Champions of Europe thing, right?
No, they're not Champions of Europe.
Hang on, let me finish. It's a qualification trophy, right? So you qualify to the league up. So Europa Conference League, you qualify for the Europa League. Wait. All right. Europa League, you qualify for the Champions League, right? Leeds aren't going to call themselves the champions of England, are they? Right? Because they ain't.
No, true.
They won the championship. They didn't win the Premier League. They ain't the champions of England, right? But that aside, I also think that if Arsenal were winning the Europa Conference League, or if Arsenal were winning the Europa League, you take them if you win them. But as a fan, and an Arsenal fan with the way that Arsenal are currently playing right now, that would say to me that Arsenal have declined. If Arsenal were playing the Europa League next year, Arsenal would have had a very bad Premier League campaign, and so they didn't qualify for Europe, or for what I would call Europe, the Champions League, right? So I wouldn't be taking playing or qualifying or winning the Europa League as a massively positive sign, because it would show to me that the Premier League form has dropped off so badly that we're playing in the B League, and I don't want
Mickey Mouse Cup.
I don't want to play. Listen. If you win it, you take it, right? But I don't want to play in the B League. I want to play in the Champions League.
I mean, what's it say about the cup? Well, hold on. What's it say about the cup? Where did Tottenham finish? 15th. They finished 17th.
17th. Yeah.
17th. Tottenham finished 17th. Yeah, go on.
Spurs are the lowest ranked team to ever win a European trophy.
But that's what I'm saying. What's that say about the cup? What's that say about the actual?
It's a bit, isn't it? They qualified for it.
Adam,
finishing. Listen, they qualified.
Mate.
They qualified for
Adam,
it because they finished top 6 the season before.
Wait, Cal. But if Tottenham finished in the top 6 and they got the Europa Conference League, that to me spells decline. Tottenham were finishing higher than Arsenal in the league, however many seasons in a row, qualifying for the Champions League every year, right? And now all of a sudden they're playing in the Europa. They're playing in the Europa League. That's a decline, and they won it. They've won it, right? And they're going to play in the Champions League next year, but they're going to attract who. I honestly think they're going to struggle in the Champions League next year.
I've no doubt they will, Rob.
And I don't think, although they will be able to sign players because of that, they are not going to be able to sign the level of player. Not in this first dip in of the Champions League, because they might qualify for the Champions League next year. Like Big Ange said, season 3 might be better than season 2, right? It might be.
So season 4 is.
At the moment, I can't see it. I can't see it at the moment. I'd be surprised if he's doing a job in September at the moment. But I just can't see them being able to attract the personnel that's going to make that team massively better. And I just wouldn't trade it. I would not trade where Arsenal are for that trophy. I still think Arsenal have had a better year. And I think their recruitment is going to be better because of it. Could you imagine, let's just say hypothetically we do sign Gyökeres, and then we also have Watkins off the bench. I'm sorry, I'm still taking both of those over Solanke.
But also, you talk about attracting players. Would you rather go to Tottenham or Man United at the moment, who both got to a final, or would you rather go to Arsenal? Adam, like I'm asking.
You're asking me.
Sorry.
You're Bowen. Where are you going?
Yeah, I'm Bowen. I'm going.
Yeah, where are you going?
If I was Bowen, I said this before. He goes Man United.
That's because you can't get a head stacker, innit?
But Adam. So
No,
even with the
you know why. But if you said another player, if you Kudus, right? Kudus will go Arsenal over all of them.
But what I'm
Kudus
asking,
will go Spurs over Man United.
Adam. What I'm trying to ask though, with the season they've had, right? Who would you rather go to, Man United, Tottenham, or Arsenal?
You go Arsenal, didn't you? That's a no-brainer.
That's what I'm trying to say to you though. Like them two have both got to a final, but you wouldn't want to go and pay for them, would you?
Sorry, say it again.
They both got to a final. Tottenham and Man United both got to a final. Say that even Chelsea, right, all got to a final. Yeah, two of them won something. Who would you rather go to? With Arsenal in there, you'd rather go Arsenal. I'm sorry, like
of course you would. Look, it's no brainer. Of course you'd go Arsenal because you're more of a stabilised club than the other three.
But
you've got a process. You've got a structure. Whereas Spurs are like Spurs are a young squad.
This is why mate. Tabs make so much sense.
what's Tabs say?
Get tabs on.
What do you say?
Put the thing on the last one. Put the thing up. The last one that Tab said. No, yeah, exactly. No, was there another one? No, yeah, that one.
Who's ETH?
Eric Ten Hag.
Eric Ten. Yeah, exactly.
He's at Leverkusen now.
I know. I reckon he'll be all right there.
Yeah, I think they'll win it. I think they'll win it with him in charge. I think he's a great manager, Eric Ten Hag. It's just the club that's not dysfunctional. I think Eric Ten Hag winning the League Cup and the FA Cup, and I think if he stayed in charge of Man United, he probably would have won Europa League because he knows how to win trophies. Badly, but he knows how to win trophies. But the thing is with Man United, because they've got no European football, they've had no trophies this season, they're in the shit.
They're going to have to sell.
They are in the fucking shit this year.
Cal, you having Bruno? Yep. You having Bruno Fernandes at Arsenal?
He won't come to Arsenal.
But Rob, it's time to bring out. It's time to bring out. Let's all laugh at Man U.
Let's all laugh at Man U.
Go on, do it for our listeners.
I haven't got a monologue. I'll prepare it for next week.
No, but like end of the day, like with Spurs, I know you don't like these.
Hold on. Adam, do you know they lost in their first pre-season away in Asia?
Asian All-Stars.
And then they did an open bus.
I know. Oh no.
They got booed out of the stadium apparently as well.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, they got booed.
They got the guy who scored was a part-time teacher.
Well, Aaron Maguire's a part-time defender, so it's no difference now, is it? But the thing, to get back to Spurs, right?
Sorry. Yeah.
I know you don't. Yes, they won Europa League. That's fine. They won the competition that they rightfully qualified for. So now they're in the Champions League. When you're talking about qualifying to the top competition, I mean, if you win the Premier League, you qualify for Champions League, right? But now you've got to finish top 6 to be in the highest caliber competition, which is what alluding to the European Super 6 thing that you were talking about on your comments earlier, Rob.
Yeah.
Right. So does the Champions League now feel diluted because it's got too many teams that can qualify for this competition because the overall coefficients is in England's favour rather than the club's favour? But also the Champions League is a qualification trophy as well, because if you win that, you get to play in the FIFA Club World Cup, which is now deemed to be the golden egg.
Yeah, good point.
It almost feels like there's this next level of football that we're yet to really truly witness until a few weeks' time when you're playing teams.
We've never been in it. We've never been in it.
We've never been in the FIFA Club World Cup.
No, it's a good point. Yeah, it's a good point.
So it's it's really hard to kind of.
The thing is, for us fans, for us fans, right? All we've ever known is Premier League and Champions League, because that's all we've ever maybe not Champions League, but maybe all we've ever been able to win, right? And as you just said, when you think of it actually as the next tier, and what's going to happen in the next couple of months or next month or something, we've never, obviously, as an Arsenal fan, we've obviously never experienced that yet. So our pinnacle is still Premier League and Champions League. Do you know what I mean? And that's like the holy grails. Where, as you just said, for maybe clubs like Real Madrid, or Barcelona, or the big. Even though I see things, I like to think Arsenal as a big club, but then when you sort of put it in that perspective, is it, as you just said, is there another tier where you go, well, actually, they're expected to win Champions League and expected to win the Premier League. Their national top league to play in this Super Cup, where they get 40 million to spend straight away, and if they, what's the prize money if they win it? Do we know that?
I don't know. I know it's more steered towards the European clubs getting more money from it.
Really?
Like, obviously, you're not going to get a team from Australian A-League that's won the Asian equivalent of the champion, or the Oceanic version of the Champions League, are going to get 40 million quid. That's just never going to happen. But it's been diluted into percentage of how strong the actual continents are. So it's madness. But you can expect, I'd expect a final between a European club and a South American side.
Well, I was actually going to say to you, Ed, right, to make it a little bit interesting, what about if we all pick a team out of the teams that are in there, or even if we pick them out the hat, or a European team out the hat, and we have to
that'd be our team to follow.
And that's the thing, we have to put it all the way through.
I'll pick my team now.
You can't pick it now. No, you can't, because you've got to make it fair.
There's no rules. You can change the rules, as we just explained for the past 2 hours with Keith Hackett.
Right, who are you picking?
River Plate.
River Plate? Really? Who are you picking, Rob?
Huh?
Who are you picking?
I only support Arsenal, mate, so I'll pick whoever I'm given. I don't care.
I think
I think Inter Milan will win Saturday, and then I think they'll go on and win the cup, in the Super Cup, whatever it's called.
Well, PSG are in it as well.
Nah, PSG won't win it. Nah.
The thing is, like, European clubs aside,
aren't Chelsea in it?
Yeah, Chelsea win it.
I bet you they win it. I bet you they win it.
Real Madrid, Bayern Munich,
up front, banging them in.
Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, like all these clubs here, but you can't really knock off the South American contingent. Like, you've got Palmeiras, Flamengo, you've got River Plate, you've got Boca Juniors. Like, these are massive clubs in South America. Like, they've won FIFA Club World Cup competitions, but I've just mentioned it there. But Real Madrid, like, if Real Madrid get their purse strings out and they go and buy whoever the fuck they want, they've got Trent Alexander-Arnold coming in to play for them as well. They could be a good shout as well.
Apparently sniffing around David Raya as well.
Well, there you go.
Do you reckon Arteta will let him go, David Raya? I mean, they're actually, it's almost like a done deal. They're expecting him to go. From all the news that I've seen,
we've been looking at Joan Garcia, haven't we?
He's got Newcastle, hasn't he?
Is he? Even rumours of Emi Martinez.
Yeah, no, him coming back. That's a backstep, mate. I'm sorry. That is a massive backstep. He ain't as good as Raya.
What, signing a goalkeeper that's won the World Cup?
Just because you win a World Cup.
He's
That's
fishing.
2 years ago.
He's trying to go fishing. Ignore him.
He's a step back.
Trying to catch a trout. Leave him alone. Don't worry about it.
I'd rather pull Peter Schmeichel out of retirement, mate.
But in general, in terms of like the season, like how good has it been though domestically? Like not just here, but in like Europe as well. Like domestically, you've seen Newcastle and Crystal Palace win domestic silverware. You've seen Aberdeen win the Scottish Cup, beating Celtic.
Yeah,
Happy for
that's fantastic.
You've seen Stuttgart. You've seen Stuttgart win their first trophy in 20 years.
Yeah.
You've seen Bologna win the Italian Cup. Like all these sort of competitions, and like even that promotion, like Sunderland getting back up to the Premier League. Like it's a good season for the overall.
But even this year, you say, I know they're not small clubs, but we're going to see a final with a French team and an Italian team for the Champions League.
Do you know what it comes down to? Rob, do you know what it comes down to? we spoke about this months and months and months ago about raising the ceiling, raising the foundations and the level of quality, not just, well, obviously, as you just said, not just in the Premier League, but across Europe, where money coming in, sponsorships coming in, that the standard that players are playing at now, you know, as you just said, Crystal Palace is I hate to say it, but no, Newcastle, Stuttgart, they're at such a quality now. You get the right manager in it or the right system in place, they can go on and do things. You know, Aberdeen can go on and do things and compete against Celtic and Rangers or whoever else up there. This is what we want. This is what we want, isn't it? And this is again why I always say the Premier League is the best league in the world, because the standard is so much higher. But by the sounds of it, and what Adam's alluded to, is that's happening right across, you know, Europe. You know, and that's only going to be more exciting, and it's only going to open up players to be bought and sold and brought in who can go and do a job or do more than a job if they're given the opportunity and got the right people around them, right system, right manager around them. So, you know, going back to this transfer window, you know, I know we've got our targets, Arsenal have got, but with our transfer system and the people that we got in place, you'd like to think they've got an A, a B, a C, a D that can also come in and go and do them things. And as a West Ham fan, surely you've got to be sitting there going, you know you've got players definitely leaving, 100%. Yeah, you know, Ings, who's on the £25,000 a week, whatever you'd like to tell us every week. You know, but you know, you got Kudus and all these other players, but you'd like to think that you've got A, B, and C, D that can come in who are just as good, because that's where the standard is now. The standard is so much higher. You talk about, you know, only 0.01% people make it as a professional. I'd probably like to say it's probably even a lower percentage now, because the standard is so much higher, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't even read that. What's that saying?
It's a shame it's the best league because of imported players. Yeah, it's definitely a good topic to discuss in the off season.
Yeah, do you know that could be a whole episode, couldn't it?
Blimey. Weren't expecting this one.
What's that?
My Uncle Gary's even viewed in. Cheers, Gary. Soapy. Interesting stat. This is the story about my Uncle Cal. I told you earlier about him featuring in Match magazine, where he saved 3 penalties. Yeah, that's him.
Oh, nice.
Well, congratulations, mate, on that.
Adam's got it on his wall in his bedroom. Well, is that it, Ad?
Are we wrapping up, Ad?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the comments. Yeah, no, I think we were. I'm looking at another channel as well. Whilst I'm streaming, bit of a cheat, but they've got 27 watchers. We got 7. But no, thanks for everyone for joining in. And
I've been that the whole time though. It's been fluctuating.
It's got up to 11, I think, at one point. But yeah, we ain't doing bad for someone that doesn't pay for anything. Like, you know, we've still got the StreamYard logo up in the top corner, whereas others are paying subscriptions on a month, but we don't do that. So, we've done relatively well. So I think, again, getting people like Keith Hackett and doing it organically is what we're about. So we want to give more professionals like that an opportunity to come on and share dad life with us. So, yeah, that's it.
I mean, I learned a lot tonight. I don't even care about how many people got watching. That was quality. Absolutely quality.
Really good. Well played, Adam.
Yeah, nice one. All right then, boys. Well, we'll finish it off there. We'll have a week off next week. And then we'll come back a week after and we'll do transfer news and FIFA Club World Cup and other tackling topics, really. But yeah, I think this will probably be the end of Series 1, where we've actually made the finishing line on this, boys. Missed a couple of weeks here and there, but it's just normal. Dad life comes and goes. But now I say Series 2 will be very, very
bigger
soon.
and better.
Bigger, better, and with a new theme tune. So anyway, boys, I'll speak to you later, and catch you on the other side.
See you guys later.
Night, guys. Night.
Oh, we laugh and we cheer and we spill a bit of beer. Raise a glass to the past and the mates who ain't here. From Highbury to Upton Park, there's now Ashburton and Stratford for a lark. It's the Old Dad's Our Job podcast, the heart of the game. And we cheer and we spill a bit of beer. Raise a glass to the past and the mates who ain't here. From Highbury to Upton Park, it's now Ashburton and Stratford for a lark. It's the Old Dad's Our Job podcast, the heart of the game.